Hey everybody, just brought another load from the house over to our storage unit as we continue to get ready for our move to Iowa. But I wanted to take a few minutes to give you today's Project 1019 update. If you're unfamiliar with Project 1019, I want to invite you to go to the website crossencountersmin.com, crossencountersmin.com, and there you will find the story about Project 1019 on the homepage. If for some reason you don't see it there, simply type project into the search window, and I'm sure that will come up for you. Today I was outside of the Foothill Area Community Station of the Los Angeles Police Department. Pretty old station. In fact, I read today that the station was first established in 1869. I believe California became a state in 1850, so it wasn't long after California became a state that the city of Los Angeles had a station known as the Foothill Area Station. Pardon me. It was blistering hot out there on the sidewalk. There was no shade. Temperatures certainly were close to, if not over, 100 degrees. But it was worth every drop of sweat. It was worth the sunburn. It was worth it all to be outside of this station today. It was a very encouraging time. Initially, I was wondering if I was going to have any contact with officers. The way the station is set up, it's on a busy street, Osborne Street, one of 1,000 busy streets in the city of Los Angeles. And the way the station's set up, there's one driveway where patrol cars will exit. But other than that, there's not much of a front to the building. The windows for the building are behind a block wall. The windows for the lobby, rather, are behind a block wall. And so I wasn't sure how much interaction with my brothers in blue at Foothill Area Station I would have. And so I began to pray. And ask the Lord to give me opportunities to encourage officers at Foothill Station and to put the gospel in their hand by way of the Police Lives Matter gospel tract. And literally moments after I finished praying, a car pulled up and stopped in the middle of the lane in front of me. It was obviously like an undercover type vehicle, or what we might call a take-home vehicle. And it was the commanding officer for patrol operations of the station. And a very nice lady. She thanked me for being there, thanked me for being out there encouraging the troops. I asked her if I can give her something. She said sure, walked out into the lane and gave her a Police Lives Matter tract and thanked her for stopping. And that was the beginning of what would be an hour and a half or so of just wonderful ministry opportunities. Not long after the commanding officer came out and introduced herself, a detective came out and brought with him a bottle of water, thanked me for being there. And then another officer, a patrol officer, came out and also thanked me for being there. I went to shake his hand, and he took my hand, he shook my hand, but then he put his arms around me and gave me a great big hug, and I think was moved by my presence out there. And that's exactly what I want. I want these men and women behind the badge to be encouraged, to know that they are loved, to know that they're cared for, and let that be the opportunity for me to simply put the gospel in their hand through a gospel tract. I was able to give tracts out to a number of civilians who are walking up and down the street. The interaction with the people driving up and down the street was by and large positive. I received only one finger wave the whole time I was out there. That was the only negative response. No shouts, no negative shouts, but thumbs up, waves, honking of the horn. So the majority of the people were very positive. And about a half hour or so before I left, a lieutenant came out, possibly a watch commander, as well as a lead officer. On the sheriff's department, we call them bonus deputies. Some departments call them corporals. Some departments call them lead officers. This officer had 2 stripes, so that's probably, for you civilians out there, the easiest way to describe him. And again, they were both very appreciative. The lieutenant brought me out a big bottle of water, and I really appreciated that. They wanted to take a couple of pictures of me holding the sign in front of the station, and so I was honored to do that. And in fact, the watch commander was somewhat hesitant to ask. He didn't want to put me out. He didn't want to, disturb what I was doing and or come off the wrong way. And I just assured him, I said, Lieutenant, whatever you want to do is fine with me. And if this picture will encourage other officers at this station, then take all the pictures you want. And so that was a really encouraging time. I got to spend some time talking with them a little more personally, I guess. And I won't go into details because of the nature of the conversation. And I think my background in law enforcement, I let them know that I was a retired deputy sheriff. I think that opened up some doors for conversation. And so it was nice to have, although a brief time, they're working, but it was nice to have a brief time to talk to them, to chat with them, to encourage them, and to be encouraged by them. I was very encouraged by them. Probably the most significant civilian interaction I had was with a young man named Caesar, who came walking down the street. He was dressed in like a yellow construction vest, as if maybe he was working as a signalman or something like that, in a construction area nearby. But he came walking by. It appeared he was walking home from work, and he saw my sign and he said, "Hey, what's this all about? What are you doing out here today?" And he was very cordial, very friendly. It wasn't an antagonistic, "Hey, what are you doing?" He was very, very nice. And I explained to him that I was out there trying to encourage the law enforcement family, trying to be an encouragement to them. And he asked me, he said, why does it seem like so many more bad things are happening today? And assuming he was talking about some of the interactions that are now being posted on videos when people have confrontations with law enforcement, I told him that I don't know if more things are happening, but that more people have cameras. I told him that I worked the streets at the time of Rodney King. And after that incident, people were coming out of their houses with these cameras that were so big you had to hold them on your shoulder, just about. The cell phone was a new invention. There's certainly, the internet was in its infancy, and so people weren't running around with smartphones with cameras and video cameras in their phones, videotaping everything that they see. And as we know, oftentimes when you see a video on YouTube or Twitter, on Facebook of an officer in a confrontation with a suspect, you're only seeing a snippet of what is going on. And you may see the worst moment, the worst 30 seconds of an incident that lasted several minutes or longer. And so videos like that are often without context. And I explained to Caesar that the law enforcement community draws from the same fallible human race as every other profession, and that there are good cops, there are bad cops. The good certainly far outweigh the bad, no doubt, and that the good cops don't want to work with bad cops either. And so if an officer does something wrong, if he breaks the law, if he violates policy, he ought to be held accountable to the highest standards of that department. And all of the good law enforcement professionals out there would agree with that. They would certainly agree with that. And then he asked me, well, how does a bad cop get through the process? And I explained to him, I said, look, it took 11 months for me to go through the hiring process with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department back in 1987. 11 months. And I was one of those squeaky clean applicants. And there were a few hundred, I think, or more, maybe upward of 500 people that were hired when I was out of I think tens of thousands of applicants. There was about 500 that were hired for 2 or 3 or 4 different academy classes, and there were people from my academy class who were fired for misconduct. They went through the same process I did. They went through the same background investigation, went through the same physical, the same psychological tests, the same oral interviews, again, the same background investigation, which was very thorough. But, there's only so much you could do. But again, by and large, the officers who are out there on the street, working in a radio car, or working in a jail, or working detective bureau, or working the desk, or wherever they may be working, they want to do the job right. They want to do it the right way. And Caesar understood that resonated with him. But then I said, but Caesar, the reason why bad things are happening out on the street is because of sin. Because of sin. Because we were all born with a sin nature. And the answer to that, Caesar, is on that card I gave you. And so I asked him to make sure to read it. I mentioned to him that, it was the gospel of Jesus Christ, and we talked a little bit about his family and about family members he has in law enforcement, and a brother who's just graduating from high school and wondering what he's going to do, if he's going to go into the Navy or what he's going to do, and so it was a nice conversation with otherwise total stranger whose hand I was able to put the gospel in. So it was a great time of ministry out there today, and I want to thank those of you again who are holding the rope, people like KT and Casey, who are holding the rope for me, and I know many others of you are as well. Pray for the officers at Foothill Division, not only those who I had contact with today and received the gospel, but all of the brave men and women who are working at that station. Until next time, be blessed and have a good night.